Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick, and today we're diving into one of the most exciting aspects of 3D printing, painting your 3D models. Imagine taking your prints to the next level with stunning multicolor designs while uncovering tips and tricks that most tutorials don't even touch on. This isn't just another tutorial, it's your gateway to mastering the art of 3D painting. I'll guide you step by step from setting up your AMS and syncing your filaments in Bambu Studio to mastering every single painting tool. We'll dive deep into the essentials like prime towers and flushing volumes, exploring how they work together to make more efficient prints. And to wrap it all up, I'll show you how to bring it all to life with a fully painted Jurassic Park Jeep. Whether you're a beginner or looking to sharpen your skills, this video is packed with everything you need to elevate your 3D printing game. So grab a cold one and let's jump in and start painting your next masterpiece. On the left side of Bambu Studio, you'll find the filament menu. This is your go-to for managing filament. You can add or remove colors, change filament types, and sync AMS colors with Bambu Studio. Before we dive into this tutorial, let's get the filament loaded into the AMS Lite. For this tutorial, I'm using PLA filaments. They're beginner-friendly and super easy to work with. That said, the AMS can handle other types of filament like PETG, ABS, so you've got plenty of flexibility. But to keep things simple, let's stick with PLA today. Here's what I've loaded into my AMS Lite. Sunlu white PLA, a small generic black spool of PLA, Bambu Lab green PLA, and Sunlu red PLA with the new spool style. Here's a quick tip. Not all spools fit perfectly onto the AMS. For instance, this old Sunlu spool has a different hole size. That's where these spool adapters come in handy. They're easy to print and ensure that the spools fit snugly on the rollers. I'll include a link below so you can print your own. Speaking of spools, did you notice the small black PLA I mentioned earlier? Even smaller spools can work with the AMS as long as they fit securely. Once all the filaments are loaded and properly fed into the AMS, it's time to return to Bambu Studio and set up our filament colors. I'll walk you through matching your filament slots, syncing them with Bambu Studio, and prepping for a flawless multicolor print. Once we're back in Bambu Studio, let's go ahead and switch over to the Device tab where we can set up our filaments with the AMS. Over here on the right hand side is where we can manage all of that. Depending on if you have an AMS or an AMS Lite, it will display the colors 4 across, or for the Lite, it will display them like this in a 2x2 grid. It also has the extra spool option in case you have that set up. Now the colors that are set up currently do not match what I just loaded into the AMS, except for the Bambu Lab green PLA. This is because all Bambu Lab filaments have an RFID tag. You can see that the correct color has been loaded. It also displays an eye icon rather than an edit icon. This indicates that the filament has been recognized by the RFID. You can click on that icon and a pop-up will display. The filament name, color, temp, and serial number have all been loaded, making the process for Bambu Lab filaments a much more streamlined experience. Let's move forward and properly set up the rest of our AMS filaments now. Slot 1 is right here. You can see that they're labeled A1 with a circle icon around it. You can actually click on that, and if you have Bambu filament loaded but not recognized by the AMS, it will automatically detect the filament information for you. Since we are not using Bambu filament for this slot, we need to manually edit it. Click the little edit icon for the slot number 1 here, and the filament window will pop up. But now this time, we need to manually add our filament information. If you happen to calibrate all of your filaments that you're using with your AMS, then you should be able to select them from the drop-down menu here. This is also why it's important to name your calibrated filaments properly. If you have not calibrated them yet, it's actually not a big deal. I use generic filament templates all the time when I haven't yet calibrated them for each of my machines. Since we are editing slot 1, let's select generic PLA for our filament and our color of white. The color is important and that will be used to visually see how your model looks when painting. The PA profile will be set to default since we're using a generic PLA template. Hit close to confirm. Now as you can see, the spool color has now changed and the slot 1 says PLA. Let's go ahead and finish editing the rest of our slots to match what we have loaded into our AMS. Hit edit on slot 2 to change it to generic PLA and change the color to black. Alright, now for slot 3, that is already done because it was detected by the RFID. Now for our last filament, we are using the Sunlu red PLA. Alright, now that all of our filaments are set up, let's quickly cover the rest of the buttons here in the AMS interface. The unload and load buttons do exactly what they sound like. They allow you to load and unload the filament into the selected slot. To know which filament slot you're currently selected, look for the small black outline around the spool graphic. I'll admit, it's a bit subtle, but this is your visual cue. Once you've selected the slot, simply click to load or unload as needed. Next, we have the settings button, represented by the little hexagon icon. Clicking it opens the AMS settings menu where you'll find some useful options. One option here is update the filament on startup. I personally leave this unchecked because I rarely shut down my printers, so this feature isn't necessary for my workflow. However, if you regularly restart your printer, this could be helpful to ensure your filament data is always up to date. Now, one of the standout features of the AMS, and a key reason why I purchased it for my P1S printers, is the AMS filament backup. When this option is checked, the AMS will automatically switch to another slot if the current filament runs out, provided that you loaded 2 or more rolls of the same type. This feature is a lifesaver for long overnight prints where you anticipate running out of filament after you've gone to bed. It keeps your print going without a hitch, and trust me, it's saved me a lot of time. Next up is the guide button, which takes you directly to the Bambu wiki page for the AMS. If you're new to the AMS and you want to deep dive into the features, I recommend giving it a quick read when you have time. It's a solid resource. The retry button functions the same as the one on your printer screen during filament loading. If the filament doesn't successfully push through the extruder on the first attempt, you can hit the retry button to give it another shot and force the AMS to push more filament through. Now that we've covered all the AMS functionality, let's head back to the Prepare tab to finish setting up our filaments. When you click the filament drop-down menu in the Prepare tab, you should now see a new section labeled AMS Filament at the top. This section displays all 4 of our colors with their corresponding A1 through A4 icons from the AMS. Next, we need to add our filaments to the project, and there are 2 ways to do this. First, you can use this icon button right here, and if you click it, a pop-up will show. Then hit Resync. It will sync these new filaments that you just set up in the Device tab and add them to the filament list. The manual way of doing this is if you click the plus button here, you can manually add your loaded filaments by using the drop-down menu and manually selecting a filament. Let me remove the sync filaments first. Now, if I manually add 4 filaments to our project, I can go into each one and select our AMS filaments for each. Next, let's dive into adjusting filament settings. To do this, click the edit icon right here. A new window will pop up, giving you a variety of options that you can manually adjust for the specific filament. If you have the advanced mode turned on, you'll notice that there's more settings that appear. Let's quickly turn it on to take a look. As you can see, the advanced mode reveals a lot more customization options. However, for this tutorial, we'll leave the advanced mode turned off. It's not necessary for what we're doing today. Before we move on to the fun stuff, let's touch on the last feature in the filament menu. If you click this gear icon, it will pop up a menu where you can add filament templates built into Bambu Studio. While not every brand is included, you'll find all of Bambu's filaments and mini Polymaker filaments available to add here. For now, let's cancel and go back. Now that we've covered everything, let's go ahead and paint our first model. I went ahead and opened up a few models so that we can go over each of the painting tool features. For our first model, I wanted to dive straight into the fun stuff. We will be painting a JP18 Jurassic Park Jeep. If you've been a longtime supporter of my channel, you know I love printing dinosaur skulls. So I thought this fits the project perfectly. To activate the paint tool, you first need to select the model you want to paint. Then you'll notice the toolbar at the top will highlight. This means that you can now use the tools with the currently selected model. Let's go ahead and open the paint tool by selecting this icon here or by pressing the N on the keyboard. Once you click on the paint tool, you'll notice everything else in the main window disappeared. This is because Bambu Studio went into isolation mode. This makes it possible to work with the current model without having other models obstruct your view. Up here at the top, you can see our 4 loaded filaments. To get started painting, you first need to select the color you want to work with. It's like picking your paint with your brush. You can either use the mouse and select a filament by clicking on it, or by using the number on the keyboard that represents the color. So if I wanted to pick red, all I have to do is hit 4 on the keyboard and it switches. Next are all the different types of painting tools. Each tool works differently from one another. First, let me change my view to the side by pressing Ctrl 5. Then I'll zoom in and angle my camera. The 6 painting tools are the circle, sphere, triangle, height range, fill, and gap fill. The circle and sphere both work similarly. The pen size controls how big of a brushstroke you want to make. You can use the slider widget to adjust it, or if you hold down on the Control key and click the scroll on the mouse wheel, you can adjust the pen size without having to use the mouse. This is a great time saver if you're making intricate painting adjustments. The section view allows you to hide sections of your model for more detailed painting. If you're not able to get a good view of what you want to paint, simply adjust the section view to hide parts of your model. This tool also has a slider widget that controls it, but if you want the shortcut for this tool, simply hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and adjust with your mouse wheel. Now you'll notice after you adjust the section view, it will change to a button that says Reset Direction. The way the section view works is it will start to remove the model from the direction of the view of the camera. So if you move the camera, it will still continue to remove the model from the same angle. If you hit the Reset Direction button, now it will change the angle at which the model gets removed. Just below the Reset Direction are the vertical and horizontal checkboxes. This will lock the paint tool to only paint in those specific directions. If you want to paint a horizontal line on your model, check this box, and now if you paint, you can see my line is making a completely straight line on the horizontal axis. The same goes for the vertical. If I check that box, now the paint tool will only paint in the vertical direction. Again, this is all relevant to the camera view. So if you want this to apply in the correct direction, then check the Keep Horizontal checkbox. I'll admit, I rarely use these tools on my models. I don't own a proper tablet or a digital pen tool to make this kind of painting fun. Using a mouse to paint isn't the best, of course. I'm sure there are amazing artists with pen tablets that would enjoy freehand painting on models though. Last in the menu is Erase All Painting, and that just removes any paint that's been applied to your model. The sphere tool almost works exactly the same way as the circle tool, except it paints in a 3D area instead of a flat surface area like the circle tool. All the settings work just the same as the circle tool. The triangle tool finds triangle surface geometry that your model is designed from. It allows you to paint those individually. If we take a look at the side of the Jeep, for example, all of the triangles that make up this side will highlight and you can paint them individually. See how I was able to paint the entire door pretty quickly? This tool can come in handy when you need more flexibility for painting a section of your model, and the fill tool isn't allowing this. This will make more sense in a minute. Next, let's skip over the height range tool and select the fill tool. Both the triangle tool and the fill tool work very similarly. When painting a model, you'll use the fill tool more than any other tools. Now, if I erase all the painting on the model, I'll show you how powerful this tool is. With one click, I was able to fill the entire door. Now, can you see the difference between the fill tool and the triangle tool? The triangle tool can accomplish the same task, but with a little more control. However, the fill tool has the ability to adjust its fill control. Let's go ahead and skip over the edge detection checkbox for a minute. The Smart Fill angle slider can be adjusted using the slider widget with your mouse. The shortcut for it is the control on the keyboard and the mouse wheel. What the Smart Fill angle slider does is it allows your fill to fill in more than just one section at a time. It will begin to start highlighting adjacent surfaces that are connected to the surface of your model. As you can see, if I adjust the Smart Fill to say 57 and then click on the door again, it now paints the entire door, the dash, and the door on the other side of the Jeep. This is how we can get more flexibility and control over our fills. Remember, the lower the Smart Fill angle, the more control you have over your fill. The higher the number, the less control. This is why I use the fill tool more than any other tool. Now going back to the edge detection checkbox, this tool will identify hard edges on your surface models by highlighting its boundaries. As you can see, if I uncheck this and paint, much larger sections of the model get painted. You also no longer see the edges of your surfaces highlight. This is great if you want to paint an entire section of your model a specific color without having to click on individual surfaces. Here's a tip. When painting with this feature, you can fill in a specific section of the model, then surfaces that are surrounded by your fill can be painted completely by turning off edge detection. This is because paint won't apply over already painted surfaces. It uses the already painted area as a border. The height range tool is not going to work very well for the Jeep model, so that's why I have this vase model here. Let's go ahead and switch over to that now. Select a vase and open up the paint tool and select the height range tool. If I zoom in and adjust our height range, You can see that the horizontal lines are much farther apart. What this tool does is paint a horizontal line all the way around your model. So if we wanted to paint a few different colored sections of our vase, it would look like this. Now obviously you will never paint your vase like this because it's just ugly. But you can see how this tool could be very useful if you wanted to paint a horizontal section in a specific color. This tool is perfect for that job. The feature Place Input Box of Bottom Near Mouse will move the pop-up box that indicates how far from the bottom of the model near the mouse. This allows you to use the input height and manually type in how high up you want the height range to paint a line. Type your value and click on the green checkbox to paint. If you have issues with the pop-up position, drag your mouse from below the model and up and it will reset it near the mouse. There may come a time when you're using the fill tool and you're unable to fill an area between the model, causing a gap in your colors. This is going to cause you additional filament changes and waste. What the gap fill tool does is allow you to fill in those spaces between the two colors, eliminating the color changes. I painted the front portion of the hood and the fender with the fill tool to demonstrate this. You can see the small sliver of triangle was missed and giving us a gap in color. If I use the gap tool and move the slider, you can see it fills the gap for me. There are many other examples of this, but I think you're now aware of what it accomplishes. Alright, I think I've covered all the paint tools and different uses for each of them. Let's go ahead and dive into everything about prime towers and flushing volumes. Let's quickly go over the flushing volume since we skipped over it earlier. The settings are located in the filament menu right here. When your printer switches from one filament to another, it needs to clean out the nozzle to prevent any leftover filament from mixing into the next layer. This cleaning process is called flushing, and the amount of filament used during the process is known as the flushing volume. Flushing volume is all about balance. If the volume is too low, remnants from a previous filament can contaminate the next layer, causing color bleeding or material issues. On the other hand, if the flushing volume is too high, you're wasting filament and increasing your print time unnecessarily. That's why getting it just right is so important. Bambu Studio automatically calculates these necessary flushing volumes based on the filaments you're using. For example, if you're switching from a dark color to a light one, the software will increase the flushing volume to ensure a clean transition. The flushing volumes directly correlate with the prime towers in Bambu Studio. As a printer transitions between colors or materials, the prime towers is where the flushing takes place to ensure your model remains clean and precise. The flushing algorithm in Bambu Studio has been improved significantly over the last year, reducing waste while maintaining excellent color transitions. While you can manually adjust the flushing volumes for individual colors or all colors at once using the multiplier field, it's rarely needed thanks to Bambu Studio's advanced and effective calculations. This makes multicolor 3D printing not only accurate but also more cost-effective, and very easy and simplistic for the non-technical users. Now that we've covered flushing volumes, let's go ahead and dive into the prime towers to see how they tie everything together. Prime towers are exactly what they sound like, small towers printed alongside your model. Their job is to act as a purging station, clearing out any leftover filament from the nozzle before switching to a new color or material. Think of it like rinsing out our paintbrush before changing colors. This step is crucial for avoiding streaks, blobs, or color contamination on your print. Usually prime towers are enabled by default, however, if they happen to not be enabled, you can easily activate them. Head over to the Others tab in the slicing settings, and you'll see a checkbox to enable them. Once you check the box, Bambu Studio will automatically position the tower on your build plate. Now these are the 3 key settings to adjust when using prime towers. Number 1, the width. This determines the size of the tower's base. A wider base provides more stability, especially for taller prints. Number 2, prime volume. This controls how much filament is purged during the color change to ensure clean transitions. Number 3, brim width. If advanced mode is turned on, you'll see an additional setting for brim width. Adding a brim anchors the tower more securely to the build plate, which is helpful for taller and more complex prints. Let's break these settings down a little bit more, starting with the prime volume. The prime volume is crucial for ensuring clean filament transitions. It controls how much filament the printer purges during color change. If the value is set too low, you might see streaks or leftover filament from the previous color. On the flip side, setting it too high can lead to wasted filament. Start with the default value in Bambu Studio and adjust based off of your filament type. For example, PLA usually requires less prime volume, while materials like PETG or silk finishes may need more for smooth transitions. If you're unsure, start small and gradually fine-tune with test prints. Let's talk about a few common issues and how to fix them. Sometimes things don't go perfectly with prime towers. Let's cover a few common issues and how to resolve them. Number 1, tower instability. If the tower wobbles or falls over, try increasing the width setting, giving it a more stable base. For taller prints, turn on advanced mode and add a brim width. This creates a support ring around the tower, anchoring it to the build plate. For short prints, use the default brim of 3. Once you get taller prints like a helmet, for example, try a brim width of 8 or so. I would much rather waste a little bit of brim filament than have a failed prime tower at 95% of a print. Number 2, filament wastage. If you feel like your tower is using too much filament, try reducing the prime volume. Test with smaller prints to find the right balance between clean transitions and minimal waste. Number 3, tower placement. Bambu Studio automatically places a tower in an optimal spot, but if it's too close to your model or causing nozzle travel issues, you can manually move it to a better location. Just keep it far enough to avoid contact with your print, but close enough to reduce travel time. Alright, there you have it. Prime towers may seem like a small feature, but they make a huge difference when printing with multiple colors. With these tips, you'll be able to fine-tune your prints and get flawless transitions every time. Let's go ahead and finish off the last part of this tutorial with painting our Jurassic Park Jeep. I'll fast forward this section into a time lapse so that you can see the end result. I'm not shooting to replicate the paint job from the movie, but plan to use it as a guide. I will most likely drop the green color in my painting because the Jeep doesn't have any green. Other than that, I think it's going to turn out pretty awesome. Alright, now that the paint job is complete, let's take a look at the print time. First, let's go ahead and slice our model. In the filament overview, we can see there will be a total of 233 filament changes. Our print time is 13 hours and 21 minutes, and the total waste is going to be 97.14 grams. And the total filament for the model is going to be 220.32 grams. That makes a whopping 44% of our print going to filament swaps. Unfortunately, this is the cost of printing multicolors, but once the Jeep is done, it's going to be totally worth the wait and filament. By now, you should feel confident navigating Bambu Studio's painting tools and ready to tackle your next multicolor 3D printing project. Remember, the key to mastering multicolor printing lies in the practice and experimentation. Don't be afraid to try different settings, refine your workflow, and most importantly, just have fun. Oh, and before you go, I'm excited to share what's coming up on my channel for multicolor printing. In my next painting videos, we'll dive into improving multicolor surfaces to achieve cleaner and more professional looking prints, and how to create custom gifts for your next event or get together. You won't want to miss these videos, so make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Thank you all so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. Until then, have a great day and happy printing.